My name is Dr. Tunde Legbede of Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management at the University of Lagos. Today we'll be looking at part 2 of Origin and Development of Industrial Relations. We're going to examine the first known academic writings on industrial relations. It is generally believed that the classic economist view started in 19th century, and these were the early scholars that started to write on labor and characteristics of labor as well as labor practices within the workplace. The classical economics view on labor was advocated by scholars such as Adam Smith, Reverend Malthus, and David Ricardo. Their concern was mainly on the opinion that labor was a factor of production, that labor is like any other factor of production. And because of this view, the classical economics stressed that the insufficient difference between labor and other factors to explain the complex nature of labor input into production. So they were the early scholars that identified the characteristics of labor and compared it to that of other factors of production and tried to emphasize on the unique labor or unique nature of labor. But however, the labor itself as a factor of production is more greatly influenced by the social and economic work environment. These are the perspective of the 19th century classical economic view on labor. The social reformist view on labor was advocated by Sidney and Beatrice Webb and by Karl Marx, even though these two groups of scholars differ at certain points concerning labor within the workplace. The social reformers generally stress that the view of classical economics did not recognize the agonizing and traumatic experience of the laboring class. They believe that the classical economics approach treats labor as part of the machine processes and therefore dehumanizing labor by subjecting labor to every other processes and experiences of other factors of production which are innate in character. So the social reformists therefore emphasize that this traumatic experience of laboring class can be ameliorated by institution of trade unionism. Unlike the classical economists that believe that the labor market should be a free and fair market where the interplay of demand and supply determine a lot of issues, including wages to be paid to the laboring class. So therefore, any uh, intervention will affect the proper functioning of the labor market. So the social reformists believe that the trade union can intervene in the process of labor market, especially in the area of wage determination, the area of wage determination, in the area of workers' welfare, which were not ordinarily captured by the classical economics. So the webs and mass, however, differ in their frame of analysis and the ideological perspective regarding the role of trade union in industrial society. For the Marx, for the Karl Marx or the Marxists, they believe that trade union should be a revolutionary agent for changing social order through a violence overthrow of the capitalist class or capitalist system. And of course, it implies that the masses believe that trade unions should be agents of change of the transition from capitalism to a communist system. That is the perspective of the masses, that trade union should take a frontal position in the administration of the workplace and rally around the wage employment by coming together and challenge in a frontal manner the capitalist system. And the only solutions to their problem is to overthrow the capitalist class. But the webs, on the other hand, has a contrary perspective to what uh, Karl Marx advocated as the central role for trade union in any capitalist system. The Webs, though, were optimistic about the constructive role of trade union in bringing about the social change required by workers, but they did not endorse a violent challenge of the social order in the manner of revolution. Therefore, the Web believed that trade unions could serve as effective institutions for the material benefit of workers. Industrial relations emerged as a discipline through the concerted efforts of Sidney and Beatrice Webs, especially in their book Industrial Democracy. They first identified various analyses of British trade unionism, collective bargaining, and dispute resolution at the end of the 19th century. The web also accounts for trade union development and theoretical analysis of organization of employer. And also, as a result of the writings and concerted efforts of the webs, other school of thought emerged. Other school of thought emerged, and they were later known as Oxford School of Industrial Relations. One of the most popular scholars among the Oxford school of thoughts is Alan Flinders, that later advocated the concept of job regulation in industrial relation. However, Alan Flinders, in his own thoughts and his analytical framework, contradicts most of the explanation and theoretical posturing of the webs. And according to Alan Flander, he believed that industrial relations should be more of joint regulation in which employers had an equal interest, unlike the view of the webs that emphasize uh, an authoritarian decision making through trade union and a single authorship of rules in industrial relation. And that is a major critique of Alan Flanders against the web's position concerning uh, rules and regulation within the workplace. The web believes only that the trade union play a vital role uh, in formulation of rules and regulations that govern the workplace. And the web never look at the side of the employer as a major participant, as a major player in industrial relations. So the webs come up with the idea that in industrial relations, there should not be single authorship of rules and regulation, that authorship of rules and regulation should be a joint venture between the employers and employees. So that is why Flanders say industrial relation more of creating rules and regulations that govern the conduct of the actors within the workplace and work practices.